I want to talk about something today. I want to go in Matthew 24:15 and just talk for a minute on this abomination of desolation. I'm gonna tell you how I understand it so far, and to see where we're at, because I'm trying to get a deeper understanding of this. And this is really interesting. This let's read Matthew 24:15 and 16. And this is in Matthew 24. It's describing all the signs that are going to happen right before Jesus comes back. And it's funny is when you go through the signs, because remember, Jesus told this to his disciples. Okay, so these things were going to be happening in their days too. So all these events, they've been happening for the past 2,000 years, from what I can tell. But as the closer we get to the approach of the second coming, like labor pains, they're going to get more frequent, and they're going to happen in more rapid succession. Just like labor pains, when you get down to the contractions, these things are getting worse and worse and faster. So let's read here. And this gospel, oh no, I got a good one for that one, but that'll be in the next video. Let's go with 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. And then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Okay, so this is telling us that when we see the abomination of desolation, that we are to flee the cities. We are to leave the city and get into the country, get into the mountains. Okay, the wilderness. This is what we're supposed to do. So notice how in verse 15 Jesus directly points us to the book of Daniel. I love how he does that. That's so cool. He's letting us know that Daniel has information that can help us on this topic. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple verses here. First, let's look at the Greek words here of abomination and desolation. Okay. All right, the abomination is the Greek 946, and it's delugma. Okay, delugma. I wonder if this is where they get the word delusion. Well, anyways, it means a foul thing, a detestable thing, of idols and things pertaining to idolatry. So idolatry is a big trademark or waymark of the abomination. Okay? So when you hear the word abomination, think idolatry. Okay, idolatry is where we're worshiping, graven images, anything that's other than God. Okay, is from what I'm getting out of that. All right, well, let's look at the word desolation. That's the Greek 2050, and it's the word eramosis. Okay, it means making desolate, desolation. It just means to make desolate. Think about dropping a nuclear bomb on a city. And, you're going to make it desolate. Okay? Alright, so we looked up the two words. Now, since he points us to Daniel, let's go to Daniel first and look at this. And I got some notes here. First, let's go to Daniel chapter 8. And this is verses 11 through 13. Now check this out. I'm going to read all three verses. He magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. That word sacrifice was added. It's really the daily. And what it really means, from what I can tell, daily, it means the continual. Okay? It means the continual. So something that continues. And we're going to find out here in a minute on what it was. So the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Okay, they cast down the sanctuary, and the God of heaven, this system did this. Okay, and an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground. So this system cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and it prospered. Okay? Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And the very next verse just tells us about the 2300 days, which takes us to 1844. Okay, so if I'm looking in here and I'm looking at what the daily, by what I can tell from what Ellen White has spoken of, this is just how I understand it. The daily happened in 508 AD, and it represented paganism. Okay, paganism was in the church. It started creeping in around 300 with the Constantine and all that stuff, when Christianity became the state religion, and all the pagan beliefs started flooding into the church. Okay, but paganism was taken away and something else was put into its place. Well, if you guys look in history, in the year 508 AD, that's the year when King Clovis, I believe he was a French king, he was the king of France, he was baptized into the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, you guys can look this up. Okay, this is the time when the daily, if the daily is paganism and it was taken away, it would be 508 AD is when this happened. Okay, and if you look it up in history, it tells us that King Clovis, this is the moment that he was baptized into the Roman Catholic Church. That's very significant, you guys, because when we learn about what the Abomination of Desolation is, that's the year. That's very key. All right, let's look at a couple more verses here. Let's look at Daniel 12. Let's see what that says. Daniel 12:10 through 12. And it says, Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, now that would be, if I'm correct in this understanding, that would be 508 AD is when paganism was taken away. Okay. The daily was taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. Remember, Jesus said to look to Daniel, okay? And the abomination that maketh desolate set up. There shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days and 30 days. 335 days. Alright, man, now check this out, guys. If paganism was taken away in 508 and the king was baptized Roman Catholic, that means Roman Catholic would have been set up at that time when the kings accepted it. Okay, now we know the papacy reigned for 1260 years. Okay, but if you go, and it started in 538, you go back 30 years, that brings us to 508. Well, what happened in 508? King Clovis was baptized Roman Catholic. That would have been, that's when the papacy would have technically, what does the verse say? It says that the abomination that maketh desolate will be set up, and there'll be 1290. You guys, that's 508 AD. And the abomination that makes desolate is the papacy. That's what it is. It is the papal supreme. Because for 1260 years, they killed God's people, you guys. Anybody that doesn't believe what they believe, they kill you and they call you a heretic. They are the abomination that makes desolate because they kill. Isn't that incredible? You guys, that's phenomenal. And I'm going to tell you why it's the abomination. And it comes down to a lot of abominations, but one of the main ones, you guys, is sun worship, because they worship on Sunday. That's an abomination to God. the God of heaven, you guys. So the abomination, Sunday worship, it makes desolate, because anybody who does not go along with them, they killed everybody during the Dark Ages. That look when they first came to power, between 476 and 538. Okay, three of the 10 horns that carved up Rome, they wouldn't go along with this, and they were trying to fight the Catholic Church and the papacy and all this stuff. And what'd they do? They used the other 7 armies, and they plucked up 3 of the 10 horns and killed all the people. They made desolate, you guys. They were the abomination that made desolate 3 of those 10 horns. That's incredible. I can't believe I've never understood this before. And at 1335, I'll have to make a video on that, because that takes us to actually... Oh, I'm not even going to tell you. I'll save that for another video. So that's what that is, though. Let's look at another verse here. Let's look at... Well, right here I want to take us to Ezekiel 8:16. Now, if we look in Ezekiel 8, God and Ezekiel are talking, and Ezekiel's mentioning abominations that are being done in Israel, okay, in God's people. And God says, oh yeah, well, I got one worse than that. Well, then Ezekiel comes back and says, well, I got one worse than that. And then God comes back and says, well, I got one even worse than that. You guys, in the final one mentioned, you want to know what the final one mentioned? It's right here in verse 16. Listen, check this out. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men. And that's another video in itself, that 25 men. It's about 25 men, okay? It's not 25. It can be 25, but it can be another number. I have another video for that. It can blow you guys away. But there were about 25 men between the porch and the altar, and look what they were doing. With their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. You guys checking this out? That's the worst abomination mentioned in Ezekiel 8. Sun worship. You guys, and we just went over that. That's the papacy. Okay, paganism was taken out of the way in 508. And Roman Catholicism was set up. The papacy was set up first in 508, and then officially started reigning in 538. Is that incredible, you guys? And what is the Catholic Church and the papacy? It's sun worship. They're the ones that changed the commandments. They changed the Sabbath of God. They say it's Sunday when God's people know that it's Saturday. This is incredible that these events have actually happened in our world, in our history, and God God wrote these things thousands of years ago, you guys, and it all came true. God knew all that. Before he even created anything, the Father knew all these things. God's mind must be so incredible. There's nothing like it. Wow. So sun worship was the worst one. Okay? And it was set up in 508 when King Clovis was baptized into the Roman Catholic Church. Fascinating, you guys. Let's look what Mark says here. Mark 13:14. Because Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they all parallel each other. They talk about the same things. And if you compare each one side by side, you can get greater details on an issue. I love how God does that. But we got to compare and read them together to get more details. Mark 13:14. But when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, we just went over that, standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand. Then let them be in Judea flee to the mountains. That's when it's time to flee the cities and get into the mountains in the wilderness, you guys. Now check this out. It says the abomination of desolation, which would be the papacy. That's from my understanding, that's what it is. Okay? when it's standing where it ought not, when it's standing in God's church, proclaiming to be God's church. Is that what that means? That's got to be what that means. Standing in the holy place, standing in where it ought not. It stands in the Christian church, proclaiming to be Christian. Wow, this is fascinating. Satan has been hiding in the Roman Catholic Church this entire time, the papacy, you guys. And many have not even known it. He's been pretending to be a Christian. He's been the imposter. Oh man, it's kind of scary, you know, when you're learning these things, man. Let's look in Luke 21:20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. When you see what happened was in 66 AD, the Roman armies surrounded Jerusalem, and they put their Roman standards, their Roman laws in the ground. Okay, and they were in Jerusalem was going to have to obey the Roman government. Okay, I don't know. I got to study that history a little bit more. I don't know a lot about it. I've just kind of touched it a little bit. But I know that they retreated in 66 AD, but the sign, God had told his people that when they see the abomination of desolation, to flee. So they left in 66 AD, and it was a mysterious reason that they just left. They retreated for no reason. I don't even know what the reason was. But God's people, when they saw this, his Christians that were in Jerusalem, they all fled to the wilderness. They got out. Then the Roman armies came back in 70 AD and destroyed Jerusalem. And anybody who didn't leave, they were all killed. I think they're estimated like 1.5 Jews, something like that. They were killed outside the city, and they were crucified and killed, and just terrible. All Jerusalem was destroyed. So that had to be kind of like probably the origins of the papacy in a sense, because the church. I'm going to have to study more on what was going on in the Roman church, because I know the Jews were working with the Roman government when they crucified Christ. I mean, it was a church-state union, you know what I mean? But I'm going to have to read more about that. But isn't this incredible to know these things? So the abomination of desolation, it's the papacy. From what I can tell, that it's describing the papacy. And if you disagree with them, because they have control of all the state power in the world, they kill everybody. That's what they did during the Dark Ages. And that's what they're going to do when they resurrect back into power. I used to think that it was the revival of the Roman Empire. Well, in a sense it is. It's the revival, the resurrection of the papacy. It's the deadly wound that's being healed. So, just fascinating, you guys, to learn about that stuff. Let's look at one more. Let's look in Revelation 17. It's talking about, and this is the papal system here at the end of the world with the Protestants and the kings of the earth. Now, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. Okay, the woman, that's a church. She was arrayed in purple and scarlet. That's the colors of the papacy, too. They wear those colors. And notice this, they were decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. I mean, they're the horror. They are the adulterating horror, because they claim to be Christian. They're supposed to be married to Christ, but they're married to the kings of the earth because they want their power. So that's adultery. Okay, and they commit idolatry by worshiping the sun, which the sun is not there for worship. So this is fascinating, you guys. So it's a very wealthy church too, okay? And we know the Vatican's very wealthy. Well, let's look here. Having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. We just talked about the fornication. She's cheating, adulterating on God. But the abominations, I need to look more into that. Ezekiel chapter 8 talks about a lot of the abominations. I'm going to have to study that a little bit more. But we know one of them is sun worship, okay? And upon her forehead was a name written. Okay, upon her forehead, her mental, okay, was a name, her character, written, Mystery Babylon. This is the papacy. The great the mother of harlots. She's the mother church, and she has harlots. The harlots are the Protestant churches that she was given starting around the 16th century. I mean, they run America. They're all over the world. Her harlot daughters, who are in Revelation, the harlot daughters are also the false prophet. Okay, that's why the United States is the false prophet, because all the Protestant churches are here. Many of them are here. And she's the mother of the abominations of the earth. Fascinating, isn't it, guys, to learn about these things? Because I'm one of those people that I'm so tired of hearing about what man's opinions are about the Bible and what truth is. I don't want to hear that no more. I only want Bible truth. I want what God tells us. He's told all of history to us in advance. And that's the only thing that can establish truth for us, guys. It has to come outside of ourselves. No human has the ability or angel to establish all truth. Only God can do that. And that's why he's put the Bible in the world for us to read and study. So, fascinating. I love it. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about that, you guys. So let me know what you guys think. If anybody wants to talk about this further, I would love to. So, alright, that's it for this video. And I'm going to be putting more studies up and more some of my ideas to try to put all this together. So, alright, well, God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time.